Hello and welcome to the second live stream for the summer box for ArtSnacks Quarterly. And if you are new here and have never heard of ArtSnacks before, I wanted to give a brief summary about what ArtSnacks is. And ArtSnacks is an art supply subscription company, and they offer 3 different subscriptions themed around different art supplies. So ArtSnacks Quarterly is more of like your general art snacks box, and then they also have a watercolor snacks for watercolor and a art journal snacks for art journaling. And today I'm going to be demoing some of the supplies that came in the most recent ArtSnacks Quarterly box. And mainly it's going to be demoing some portrait techniques. You can already see here, this is a finished example that I have. And we're going to mostly be using this Lyra graphite crayon that is water soluble. Before I move on, I should introduce myself. My name is Caitlin, and I work as the resident artist for the ArtSnacks Quarterly box. So if you've been around a while, you've seen me a lot. If not, welcome. I'm Caitlin. Nice to meet you all. I have a background like academically in art education and multi-disciplinary education. So I've had a lot of different experiences with different mediums. In my current artistry practice, I still mess around with lots of different supplies. So I'm always excited to get my ArtSnacks Quarterly box and see how either like it's really going to challenge me or excite me and get me excited with different supplies. And one of the supplies that was new to me was this graphite crayon, and its water soluble abilities are really, really cool, and I can't wait to show you more details using that. So I'm going to go through some supplies that I'll be using for this class, and we can go ahead and go to a full view here. So here's my finished demo. We can look at this in a little more detail in just a second after I go through some supplies. I'm going to be using the Van Gogh drawing paper here. It's a Van Gogh drawing and sketch paper, and it came in the quarterly box. And then the star of the show is the Lyra graphite water soluble stick or crayon. I always say graphite stick, but that's kind of something else. This is graphite crayon. And I wanted to show you some swatches too. I did a more in-depth swatch video or portion of my last live stream, and that is saved on the ArtSnacks YouTube channel. But feel free to ask me any questions in the chat, more specifically about the art supplies. If you have a question, I'm happy to answer. So this, the grade of this graphite is a 6B grade, which means it's going to get like a lot closer to a true black color. So that higher the number is before, or the before the letter, basically means like the darker it's going to be, or the lighter it's going to be, depending on the letter. And I have an example here to show you. I brought out some other graphite pencils to more explain the difference between the graphite grade. So I'm just going to take a ballpoint pen here. You have your scale of graphite. And over here you have, I'm going to put H on this side, and I'm going to put B on this side. And the H stands for like hard or hardness, and the other one stands for black. And so in the middle, you have an HB grade. And so that is going to be this pencil. So you can see they have HB pencils. And sets similar to this are for sale on the ArtSnack shop, or they have individual pencils as well on there that will show you that will have different gradings. So they have quite a variety on there if you wanted to look at different pencil grades. So you can already see how much lighter that is than the one I just swatched over here. And then so I'm going to pick up a 2B one. So that's going to be a little bit, closer on this scale. So you will already be able to see that this is darker and can get much darker, especially with pressure applied. Some of the ones, like the harder the graphite lead is, even though you might press on it really hard, it still will not get very dark. So this is a 2H. So that higher number in front of the H is going to bring you more over towards the H scale. And you can tell how much, like, I'm holding this pencil at the same angle, and you can tell how much more like thinner this line looks, and that's because it's harder and it's not like creating as much, like, I don't know, dust. It's not as soft. So it's a lot lighter. And I even have, this is a different brand even, this is a 3H, so it's going to be even closer to the H one over here. So you can see how much lighter that gets. And then, so this guy, let me see, I have a 4B we can put down from this set. And then this one is 6B. I don't have it labeled, but I put a washi tape around my one that was 6B. I'm trying not to shake my desk too much doing this. And so you can see then how this creates a value scale, not even with the type of shading. I'm not using any type of shading technique here. This is just kind of swatching the materials, and you can see how it already is creating its own value scale. So it's good to know, like, if this was a new product for you and graphite's new to you, it's good to know that, like, you're using a product from this box that is on the darker side. And so you'll probably hear me say this later when I'm demoing, that like a little of this goes a long way, especially when you're using it to be like when you're using it with your water brush for it to be water soluble. So keep that in mind, because it does get even darker when you apply water to it. And I also have in my possession a 9B one, so it's even darker, and I just wanted to show you guys what that looked like too. So you can see that there's, I'm sure, I don't think there's like a limitation to the range of graphite grades, and companies are innovating all the time too. I think Faber-Castell, and I think this one is in the shop too, has like a range of graphite grades, but instead of the graphite being gray, the graphite is black. So that's really cool too. So definitely, go check out the drawing supplies in the shop. You'll always find like the cool stuff and the cool new stuff from all the brands in there. And then let's get in. I wanted to show you this with some water as well. I have my Marabou, I think it's the Marabou Fluid Arts water brush. And I have used this already so much. I've made like so many demos since I got a preview of this product a couple months ago. And I think I've only filled my brush up once, and it's still going. So that is really what I mean, where a little goes a long way with this product. So you can see as soon as I hit it, it gets even darker, and you can start to fan it out. And it really like dissolves really cool and really seamlessly into a wash here. It does kind of leave some texture and like what's it called? It has some like granules to it. So that is a really cool look. It's using both of these products together can create some really expressive artwork. So that is very exciting. I also wanted to point out that using these, like like the form factor is obviously different than like a thin graphite pencil, but the consistency of this crayon, I think with it being a softer graphite, it also feels like a little bit oily, kind of like an oil pastel, but not quite, like nowhere near like mushy or anything. But it can be a little bit messy, and because it does have that oily consistency, it is much harder to erase. So keep that in mind as well, as you're working with it. I would say to embrace more a more sketched out look and a more expressive look, where you're going to be able to see your lines where you're building up the drawing. And if you're wanting a more polished look with these, I'll be able to show you a technique later in class that can give you a bit of a polished technique, or just really focus on maybe using transferring your drawing or like a light table or something to minimize those drawing lines as you go. But I say embrace the expressive qualities of this design, of this product. So a couple other things I'll be using during class. So I have my water-soluble graphite. I have my Marabou water brush, paper towel, a ballpoint pen. I have my fine liner here from the box. I might grab it to do a couple things, but maybe not. And then I also have my paint pen, and I actually have the whole collection of these paint pens, like the whole color range, I believe. So I'm gonna grab one depending on what what color I feel like. So I currently have the red one picked out, but I have all of them in front of me if I want to pick out a different one. And it doesn't really matter what color you have. I was more using this as like a finishing product to like frame my portrait when it's all done. So really all you really need for this class is your graphite and your water brush, and you'll pretty much be ready to go. And I do have a compass here as well, but that's also kind of for this like fun little finishing, like an anchoring technique I have for you guys later. So we're going to be working with portraits to do these graphite techniques. And I have this finished demo that I made from this picture of myself. And I just took this on my phone, and then I cropped it, and I took this from a window where the light was coming from this side, and so it really created a nice contrast. And then I even further like put a filter on it, and like a black and white filter, and then pumped up the contrast even more. So it's super dramatic, and this helps you figure out those value patterns, especially if you're drawing from a photo reference. It's super helpful. I prefer to draw from like doing like a light table transfer or another transfer technique when I'm doing photorealistic stuff. But you can also transfer something using like a grid method or something else if you prefer, or just drawing from life, or not using any guidelines at all, whatever your preference. You certainly can end up with something more stylized that way. And something else I wanted to kind of pull you guys to see if you would rather me do this is a picture of Padme Amidala. And I have this one picked out because in ArtSnacks challenge long ago, I drew this picture of Leia. And it's actually on the same paper pad. It's quite like a little bit different set of supplies, but it was still graphite. And I kind of wanted to continue this Star Wars, heroine theme. So I think that would be kind of fun. I know I already have one vote to do Padme. So if I don't get any objections to that in the chat, then I'll just continue on with this one. But I thought that would be fun just to have, I don't know, like a whole set of graphite drawings of the different female Star Wars characters. And it is, I think, drawing celebrities has always been like a really popular focal point for artists. So why not? So I'm not seeing any objections. So I think I'm just going to continue on with Padme here. And I'm going to be showing you my transfer technique. So let me flip my page to a new sheet. And another great thing about this product is usually I have to pull out like a different product to do my transfer. And this one makes it super easy. So I'm going to use the 9B one. And I'm just going to put a very light, I guess wash wouldn't be the right word, but very light sketch of graphite all over the back of this paper. And let me know if you have any questions about any of the techniques I'm doing, supplies, really anything goes. Just put it in the chat. And I have Lee here helping me out tonight with questions. And if I don't see something, he'll let me know. I do try to keep my eye on the chat though as I'm talking. So just let me know if you have any questions. And I did promise that I would say a little goes a long way. So here's the first of many probably. A little does go a long way with this transfer method using this product. And I think it's because it does have that like oily kind of consistency and it's a softer graphite. It will come off onto your paper really seamlessly. So keep that in mind. And I also mentioned that this product does not erase easily. So when you're transferring over these lines, like just know that like those lines might still be kind of visible, and we are going for an expressive look. So that's okay with me. But like maybe in a lot, like where your area is the lightest, you know, like these areas here where it's super, like, you know, a lot closer to white, maybe be careful about not letting your transfer marks get into those areas. Even the lightest line also will still be activated with the water when we go over it with a water brush. So that can also be, you can use that to your advantage, especially in these lighter areas where you don't want a lot of graphite. Using that transfer line to be your value there is really helpful. Did get a question, what is your favorite art supply in this box and why? Well, the new to me art supply is this graphite crayon. So I think that is probably, it's definitely the standout product to me. One that I had used before and already love is the Montana acrylic markers. They are super awesome and super opaque on lots of different materials. So I was really excited to have that in the box this month as well. So say it'll be hard to pick one, but if I had to pick two, that would be my pick. All right, so this transfer method, I put graphite on the back, and then now I'm going to take a simple ballpoint pen, and I'm going to start mapping out these value, the different values in this drawing. So some of the lines will be where different like facial features are. You know, I'll sketch around the pupil, I'll sketch, you know, down the nose line, so I know where that is. Other ones I'm going to like be putting, you know, kind of a shape around where it's lighter right here. And like this is just helping me to know where the gradient is shifting. And this is kind of how I've always done portraits using a transfer method. I've done portraits before where I don't use any guidelines, where I use a grid method. This is just my favorite method. And it's just one of the quickest ways to do a photorealistic technique, especially when I'm on like a time limit here with you guys on the live stream. So it's like I can certainly, you know, do photorealism without transferring, but it is so much easier and so much quicker. And when it's a just for fun project, why not? So it's also really good practice if maybe you can't do photorealism yet. Using you know, different transfer techniques to your advantage, like things do eventually become muscle memory. So don't be shy about using tools to your advantage, like grid method, light table. And if you don't have a light table, you could use a window. It's any practice is good practice. So like the more that you draw with like the subject, the better you know it. And then eventually you're able just to draw it from memory, maybe even without looking at a reference. So I know I've drawn my dog. He's a Shiba Inu. If you know, you know. And I have drawn him. There was a time where I had to always look at a picture of him, and now I've drawn him so many times I could just draw him from memory. Maybe it wouldn't look exactly like him, but it certainly would look like a Shiba. And I don't know, it's pretty fun. So I have learned experience that you know, practice makes perfect, or something close to it. So here you go. I'm just continuing to map out these different value patterns on the picture. And I used to do this as a kid with magazines. I loved taking magazines like that had full, you know, the cover image, or like different advertisements that had like a full face in it. And I would take a Sharpie and like outline different features on it. And it gave this like really cartoony look to it. I feel like that was like early evidence of like, oh, I'm probably definitely going into like have interest in the arts, something. And that's also a really good idea. Like if maybe you don't have a printer at home, but you have an advertisement came in the mail with a full picture on it, you could color graphite on the back of that and use this as your practice. And you can outline different areas of dark and light. And you can also add in really anything you think would be helpful. Like if you're like, oh, I know I'm going to include that detail and I'll be bad at, you know, figuring out exactly where it is. Just add in anything that you know would be helpful to yourself when you're drawing. So, and you kind of end up with this really fun, like, it looks like the topographic maps, you know, that they use. So this kind of creates its own fun piece of ephemera once you're done with it. Let's see, from Mix, no light box, accessible window or printer here, so I've done nothing but sketch by eye. Nice to have options. Yes, I do feel very lucky. I haven't always, but I now have a laser printer in my office, and so I print out anything and everything. But I used to do a lot of stuff for my shop where I'd be printing out embroidery transfers, and so that necessitated a laser printer. I was doing high volume printing, so but it's nice to have. Maybe check out library. Maybe I know our library has a lot of like printers available, but I know that that's not always maybe easy to get to depending on where you live. Is that in ink pen you're using. Yes, it's an ink pen. It's a Pentel RSVP pen. It's a writing pen. It's not typically a art pen. This is just something I keep on my desk. But if you're familiar with Pentel RSVP, they're kind of like a tried and true office pen and desk pen. But what I really like about using a ballpoint pen for this type of transfer is that I can press down really hard on it so that I know that it's transferring my drawing on the other side. You can see that. I know it's light for you guys right now, but that is why, like, if I went in there with my fine liner, I don't want to press down on the nib of my fine liner because I could damage that nib. So I know I can press down as hard as I want with this. You could also use a pencil, or sometimes you could use like a pen without ink in it or something, you know, to transfer it. They make styluses and stuff for transfer options like this too. That's more your thing. So just continuing to trace over these different value patterns. And so I'm paying close attention to like the large shifts in value, where like there's obviously like an area, there's like a light gray, or a darker gray to a lighter gray, and you can kind of see that line right through here of where it's shifting. So I can put a line here, help myself know where that needs to start transitioning. And so you just kind of go through your whole drawing and map it out. And this area with the hair, that's kind of like, you know, there's a lot of area that gets lost here because it's all kind of that dark gray black, where you aren't really sure like where does the neck end and just like the hairstyle begin there. And that's just kind of like use your best guess kind of thing. It's all kind of end up the same color anyway. And I do need to put a little line right there. Another one here. Make me just make sure I have everything I want on here before I lift my paper up. And I think, oh, I wanted to put these ones in here. You can see where this shifts from like dark gray, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. You can put those lines, but we want to be careful to put lines here where it's gonna, like, even though this is a lighter patch right here, I'd be hesitant to put a circle around this part because that line is going to stick there, you know, from this transfer method. So I'm not gonna do that part. So I'm gonna take this off. And if holding like a paper still like that is difficult for you, or you have to like, you know, you're gonna be needing to get up in the middle of transferring that, you can always tape it down. And my camera today is not liking my plain white paper, so I'm gonna try to like keep this in view so that it keeps it focused for me, because it's like once I take this paper away, it's like thinks that my sketch pad is like really close to the screen or really far, and so it's kind of messing with the thing. So once I get some graphite down on here, it should be a lot better. So I'm going to be using the 6B one here. That's the one that came in the box. And I'm going to start sketching in the value in some of these areas. I kind of like to dance all around and just go with what is working for me. Like instead of like maybe you like to start in one area and just work out from that. And that is a really good technique. If I was being like super measured, I would do that. But I just kind of like to sketch out and block in what is making the most sense to me and what I can see really easily. Something that like might be easy to see in this picture, and I know it's looking a little dark now that I have this out, is like the eyes are really dark, the eyebrows are really dark, this part of the hair is really dark, and maybe it's easiest to start with the darkest parts first. So it also gives you a good idea of like your material, to know if you need to use, you know, like how light of a hand you need to use on those lighter areas. And I'm just using like a really light sketch with this pencil, and I am kind of like loosely filling in this area, because when I hit it with the water, it's going to darken up, and I can spread it out with the brush to fill in that whole area. So I don't have to be super measured with this. Just putting in some basically pigment that I'm going to be using later. And I can still see all of my sketch lines here for where that outline needs to be. And then as I'm looking here, I see like, I can like see where there might be a darker part, and then maybe the rest of it I color in. And she has some lighter parts up near her head. And I can see here, this needs to be like a dark line. But all of this, when water activated, can really spread out. So you also just need to be conscious of that. Like even in a really dark area, if you're putting down a lot of pigment like this, it could get pretty dark. And you always have the option to go back and add more later. So it's better to start out a little bit lighter first. In that sense, I am going to just add some more directional lines this way, just so that you have more of a sense of the direction that where the hair is going, because you will be able to see these lines slightly once they've been hit with water. All right, and when I did this one to practice with, I came in and cleaned up this hairline a lot and kind of in my second pass over. So I'm going to wait for that as well too. Put some pigment in here with the ear. And then looking at my reference here. And then it's going to start to get a little bit lighter. So I'm not going to bring my graphite all the way over to the second line. I'm just going to put it closer to this one and then use my brush to spread it out like towards this line. I'm pretty hesitant to put anything that's going to be too dark. So, excuse me. Just keep looking at my reference photo, see what I need to be doing here. The pupil is going to be really dark. Probably going to be the darkest part of the eye. And since we don't have white, you're going to want to carve out an area for that like little highlight. And just be careful not to let water go over it. So another detail I like to make sure I keep is that water line right below the pupil, to keep some lighter area. Otherwise, the whole eye is going to get more muddied, and you're not going to be able to kind of tell the difference between different parts of the eye structure. So this is mostly, we're just making sure there's pigment in the right place. So when we come in with our water brush, there's enough to spread around to define those areas. So the eyebrow is going to be super dark. This eyebrow is going to be super dark. And it's just really good to establish what is your darkest spot on your drawing. And I'm going to close up that pupil area a little bit with my brush. I'm kind of trying, this is a chunky pencil, so trying to be as delicate as possible with these fine details. But you can already see it's kind of coming together. Just mapping out that value structure. So as I continue to do this, maybe you all could tell me if you were drawing a heroine or hero of your choice, who would you pick to do your drawing of? If you had to pick, it can be a real person or it can be a fictional person. And maybe you just have someone in mind because you know there's like a really like cool artsy photo of them or something. Like maybe it's not really about the person, but about like you know of a picture you'd really like to draw. That's kind of how I ended up drawing that Leia one to begin with, was because some of the still shots from like behind the scenes type stuff just has really good lighting in it. And the different movies in general, I think, are a really fun place to look for like photo references, composition references, and also not super relevant to this project, but they're another good, like a photo or movie stills are a good place to look for color palettes too, if you're into color theory and film. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there. I know I need to continue on to the shirt, but I'm going to stop for a little bit and pick up my Marabou Fluid Arts pen. Let me show you what I'm doing. I'm just squeezing the pen slightly to get some out onto my brush. I have been using it, so it's you can see it's a little gray looking. And this, I have the paper towel here because we're going to end up getting a lot of pigment. And when you're switching from light areas to dark areas, sometimes it's good to like kind of wipe your brush off to get some of that pigment off. So when you go into that lighter area, it's not like the brush isn't still like super full of pigment if you're trying to be conscious of that. So again, I'm still going to kind of hop around with this brush. Some of it has to do with what I just mentioned of just like how much pigment I have on my brush. Like sometimes I'll use that to my advantage and just have like draw a little bit in one area and then go to a lighter area to kind of get the pigment off of my brush and kind of go back and forth like that. Something that's really, really handy about this brush is it has such a fine tip. It is like quickly becoming one of my favorite water brushes. I thought I liked the ones with a square tip, and I'm still like a big square tip brush person, like a shader style. But this brush has been really nice and really good for taking a medium that is so chunky and can be like very I don't know, like kind of like, I guess, like it can be too large for some fine details, and this is like its perfect balance is using this like also very expressive art tool that can allow you to have like some finer details. So that is pretty cool. And I'm just using like a super light touch. But you can already see that this eyebrow is like much more darker and defined than this eyebrow over here. And that's just because I put water on it. I saw someone said John Wick has really interesting planes on his face, but I'm actually drawing a tabby cat because I had a photo reference handy. Awesome. Ugh. Awesome. That's really cool. I agree about the John Wick thing. I think I've seen like really cool kind of like geometric style portraits of John Wick before, where they use like interesting ways to like cross hatch the face and those different planes. So that would be cool. So I still have a little pigment on my brush. There's no graphite right here in this area, but I'm just taking my pigment because I can see that that's going to be a darker area over on my photo reference. And I can still like grab some from that eyebrow area and bring it down. You got to be careful though, because I'm going to say it again, a little goes a long way with this. So you want to be careful when in areas that you have a lot of pigment down. I feel like I had something. Oh, the tabby cat. Yeah, that's kind of like I almost changed this lesson into drawing my dog. And then I decided against it. Went with Star Wars instead, which I think is a pretty good example of what I'm drawing most of the time. It's either probably Star Wars related or Shiba Inu related. So if you are a betting person, that would be what to bet on. So I'm going to wipe off my brush a little bit because I want to expand this area without adding pigment. I just want to use the pigment that's there. So to clean my brush off, I will wipe it on the paper towel, but if there's a lot of pigment, I'll also squeeze a little bit of water out onto the brush more and then wipe it on the paper towel. So it like cleans it a little bit. So, and I'm just squeezing more water out as I see needed. The water also will flow seamlessly down the brush as you work, but sometimes you need like an extra little oomph of water. So that is what I'm doing, or that's the reason behind why I am using the brush that way.
Hey, Caitlin, this is Lee.
Hi, Lee.
Surprise, I'm here. I'm monitoring the comments, but I just want to give you a heads up. We're about halfway through this stream.
Great.
Looking good.
Thank you. Okay, just adding some definition to this eye area. And once this water, like when the areas that you've activated with the water will dry down. And once they have, the graphite becomes harder to move. So you, in some areas that aren't like fully like immersed, I guess, in like the water, that you can still move it around a little bit or pick up some pigment. But I would think of it kind of like you would use a water soluble marker. Like sometimes after you move that pigment the first time, it gets harder to move, like if you went back to it. And you can use this to your advantage, especially if you needed an area to be lighter, but you were too afraid to go in with a lot of water because you knew it would make that whole area dark at once. You can let it dry a little bit and then go back in with your brush, kind of like this area that I just did. It's in, there's a white lighter part in between that top eyelid and like the edge of the eyelashes. And going in there all at once right now would just make the whole area dark. But if I let that dry for a little bit, then I can go in with some water. It's going to move less pigment around and allow me to have a little bit more control. So I'm just going to leave that as is for a little bit and move on to another area. And I just like working with the areas first that I just see as really like, it's just really obvious kind of like what my next move is there. It's like, so there's obviously this really large shadow on the nose. So I like going in there and kind of defining that area first and then working out from there. So that's kind of why I like to hop around a little bit, which is probably why I like working from a photo reference, because like I don't have to worry about, I have these guidelines down that won't change, where when you're drawing from life, which I do really like to do, it's just harder to do on a stream because it's hard to show you guys what I'm looking at. I could do that technique I kind of referenced earlier where maybe I would start at the nose or something and then work out from there, like little by little. And that is important to work out little by little in that case, because it's easier to keep track of like your proportion of stuff in relation to other features. And so that can kind of get all out of whack when you're jumping around and drawing from life. But that is one of the advantages of doing like a transfer method. Darkening up bottom of the lips here, or that's the bottom of the top lip. And then it has this other really dark area here. I'm going to let that dry, kind of like I'm doing on the eyes, for a little bit. And then I'll go back in a little while and shape up some of those areas. And if you haven't noticed, I really haven't gone in to express more water onto my brush in a while. I've just been able to have it naturally flow down to the brush. And that is the perfect amount that I need right now. So even though this whole area of the face is kind of dark, and it probably wouldn't matter if I just kind of activated this whole area at once, I have a little bit more control by doing it kind of piecemealed like this. So that's why I'm not totally going into the hairline and stuff right away. And I am coming over onto the face a little bit more, and it is picking up some of those transfer lines to darken up those areas and help me create my gradient there. And now I'm more confident here to go in and leave a lot more pigment in place, because I know that hair is going to be very dark. And then once you get to an area where, you know, you're coming in contact with something like this ear that has like some very obvious structure to it, just like it's okay to be really loose with your brush strokes, but then like be mindful of those areas that do need a little bit of structure, and just take your time a little bit more around those. I'm also going over and activating this graphite in the same direction that her hair is moving, and it's going to help you know, give more of a sense of that this is hair and that it's pulled back. Instead of going like, you know, across the grain basically. So if anyone joining today, if this is your first time using the water soluble qualities of this product, or you've been playing with it, you know, since you got your box, let me know what you think, like, and what kind of like, what's your, like, I think I've tried to describe it as this like, oh, it's like kind of like activating a water soluble marker, a mix between that and like a watercolor pencil. It's kind of like not really one or the other, it's somewhere in between. What have you experienced so far? And I have been keeping my eye on Mix a bit to see what people have been posting. This area underneath the neck is all pretty dark, and I might come in, as I mentioned before, I can come back in and add more pigment here. It's just, you can already see how this, it really picks up the pigment so easily. And so I'm just being super, like, kind of calculated with those areas that are really dark. I can come back in there and put some more pigment down. Again, being careful around that hair. And this area of the hair is a little bit lighter here as it moves towards the back of that. It has some like little highlights back here, and I want to make sure I keep those because even though they're small, those little clues are going to be what helps this portrait look realistic and kind of like finished. Those little details really help. Excited to go back into the other parts of the face and start defining them. I think it's funny. You can probably tell anytime I get close to a spot that has like more detail in it because I start to slow down my words a lot when talking. All right, so this area here, and she has some like eyelashes that kind of come out from this. It's really only lighter in that center area. So I'm picking up that pigment from the pupil area and kind of bringing it up. And then it's also gets a lot darker through this area. So something you can do is go to like a really dark area, pick up some pigment on your brush, and then go into that lighter area. And it kind of helps do it in a controlled way. And so now I can kind of run my brush over this whole area without it getting too dark because some of that graphite has already been activated and it has dried down a bit. It's going to be the same thing with this nose area. I can spread this out a lot, like in a way more controlled way now that it's dried just a little bit. Go into some other areas of the nose that are a little more detailed. This whole nostril area is a little bit darker. Right, and then go down to the lips here. It's kind of fun. I feel like I had a lot of expectations for this product, like, oh, it's going to be just like using, like a graphite stick, or like if you've ever used a graphite brick or something like that. And it's just a little bit different. It's really playful, pretty fun. I love like chunky art supplies. I feel like it gives me so much more like freedom to be expressive. Oh, and if you haven't checked out the James Burke Creative ArtSnacks freestyle video, definitely check that out. He does a series of 10 portraits using like all the supplies in the class, and every portrait is like a little bit different. And some are like a little more realistic. Some are like really cartoony. And he talks through like how to him, like not all of them are successful, but like he always has, you know, like something he learns from each one that he does. And it's a really, really great exploration of the art supplies and a portrait method that is a little different than the one I'm doing here. So if you like that more kind of like cartoony style and like stylized take on something, definitely check that out. And it's a really great way, like to like if you want to fill up the sketch pad, it's a really good exercise for that. Okay, so eyeballs are not totally white. They're like a little bit gray, and they also have their own shading on them. So I want to make sure I put that in there. And make this eye not look super duper white. Also gets a little grayed out here, and this brow bone is a little bit darker here. I'm going to pick up some pigment from the hairline, bring it down to this side of the face. And it's like I'm almost using my drawing as like a palette to get into some of these areas of more mid-tones and lighter tones. Okay, so we have some decent application. Well, let me just do this part on the ponytail first. I think I definitely need to come in here and darken some of these areas up with some more pigment. Okay, and I'm going to start doing that now. So I can already tell this neck definitely needs to be darker, especially darker than the jawline there. So I'm going to come in with that. This whole area of the neck is looking okay, but I know it needs to be darker on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that all the way over here. And we'll activate it with water again and spread that pigment out. I'm just going to go back and forth right here. Careful around that ear. And it could be your choice to come back in with, like, if maybe you went in with your brush and it smoothed everything out so much and took away some of the like expressive graphite lines, this is another opportunity to just come in with this and then choose to not go back in with your water brush and leave this like second layer on here as a more expressive layer. I think this area of the eye needs to be a little bit darker. That part looks fine. That part looks fine. I need to define that nose part a little bit more, but I'm a little scared to put too much on there. Nose looks fine. Made this a little dark, but whatever. Trying to look. I think the lips are looking okay. Probably could have been a little more careful around them, but not too bad. And then I didn't finish coloring this hairstyle in. All right, and then I'm going to go back in, make sure my water brush has water in the brush part, so I pushed a little bit more in. First, I'm going to go in and make this neck area darker. And I actually put like so much pigment down, I can see it like moving around on my paper. But this area is really dark, so make sure, like if you stand back and look at your drawing, you should, like in any drawing, especially one that where you're trying to define a value scale, you should be able to step back and easily say, like, this is the darkest value in my whole thing. And it should be a standout, you know, from the rest of your like midtones and stuff. And that goes the same as your lightest one. Like it shouldn't really be like a battle of grays. And if it's not clear, that means you either need to go in and push the dark darker or the light lighter. And sometimes that means going in with a different material if you need to. Like our box, for example, has the King Art fine liners, and maybe going in after your drawing is done and like defining for, and this one would be like the pupils or something like that. That would be a good way to go in and really punch that dark value. Another example would be if you got a lighter color paint pen, going in and putting, like if you messed up these little like reflex in the eye, maybe going in with that. I know the paint pen, some of you might have gotten like a really like an icy blue color. And that might be able to be just enough of a difference, you know, if maybe you went over it too much. And it looks like, God, I was just doing that. It is so nice to lay down smooth pigment, then add texture again. Yes, I agree. I agree. I actually, I didn't do that with this one, I believe. But some of my other ones that I played around with, I did, and I really liked it. I like the whole like the smoother look too, but I think with these materials, like I think you're gonna have more fun like keeping that expressive quality in with it. And I especially like leaving in these lines with the hair, because hair can already be kind of like a tricky thing to draw sometimes, and letting the materials just kind of like do the work for you can be really nice. Not have to worry so much about that texture. It's like sometimes, like talk a lot about like actual texture, like, and then visual texture. And so paint can do that a lot, where, you know, like sometimes when you see a painting in real life, you realize that like, oh, it's actually like the shadow of something wasn't painted because the paint had like a thickness to it. So it was a real texture that was helping out, you know, define the form. And that can be the same for other mediums too. So using that actual texture of going back in can be a really big tool than just like the visual texture of trying to capture the hair with every little brush stroke that I have, you know. Okay, I'm gonna try and work out some of these bigger areas because I know I already got my halfway warning on this stream. So I am keeping my eye on the clock to make sure I at least am getting in all the things I wanted to tell you guys about and show you as far as how far we get in this demo. So I'm going back in, I'm adding a little bit more shadow to this area because I'm noticing in my reference that it just looks a lot more shadowy. So going back in with that. And going to double check. And I do like having these you know, areas where you can see the sketches, area where it's blended out. And I'm not going to start another portrait, but I do have like a portrait that I already started that uses like a slightly different technique. So when I'm ready for that, I'm going to switch over to it, but I want to get a little bit further in this one first. All right, it's looking pretty good. I don't like how this part is so defined. I'm going to see if I can loosen this part up just a little bit. That is kind of creating some lines there. I like that though. And remember, when you add water to this, it does make it like slightly darker. So if you need an area just to look a little bit darker, maybe just hit it with some water, even if you're not changing the shape at all. I think I was able to do that a little bit better there. So I'm going to pause right here and go back and show you or go and show you something where I can use a slightly different technique, and then I might pop back to this one to do some finishing details. So I go back in my sketchbook here. I have another picture of Padme. Surprise, surprise. Let me get out my photo reference to show you guys. Stuck it over here. So it's this picture of her with a hood. I really liked this picture because it had that nice, like, this side is light and this side is dark. So that is a fun, you know, like that's the type of thing to look for in a photo reference, is like, that's going to help you create a clear value pattern. You already know that this side's going to be way darker than that side. And so like, that's what I look for when I'm looking for stuff to draw. Sometimes you just see like a shadow of something when you're out and about, and I see it, like the way that something's creating shadows or a really nice value scale, and I was like, oh, I just want to draw that. Just want to like stand here and draw that. Does anybody else have those moments? Just me. So I'm going to take my water soluble graphite crayon here. And instead of drawing on it, I transferred over some line work onto here, but I haven't gone in with this at all. And instead, I've been going in with my wet brush and just like, you know, kind of dipping into it like you would a watercolor palette. And then I'm going in and painting. So this is going to be a different look. You know, maybe you're not into the expressive lines of everything that you get with this medium, but you really love how the wash looks and its tones, and you still want it to look like a graphite drawing. Or maybe the thing that you're drawing has so much detail in it that it's hard to go in with a chunkier medium. So this is a really good way to even use this in combination with what you're drawing, and you need an area that you need to get into that has really tiny detail, and you just can't get in there with this one. Then this is a really great way to have a little bit more control. And like I mentioned before, this Marabou the Marabou Fluid Arts brush has a really fine point, so it's a pretty easy to get in there with the details. And like, probably could have done this area a little bit better, but the photo reference of this, the cape that she's wearing, like the hood, is velvet. And I actually really like, like, I said this, doing it this way maybe wouldn't be as expressive, but I really love how that is kind of portraying something soft, and you can still, use that to your advantage. But yeah, I did want to show you another option starting from one that didn't have as much of the line, so you can kind of see what you would get if you were just using this for the pigment. And yeah, I kind of work on this in a similar way. Just go to the areas that make the most sense to me first, as far as value structure, and then go from there. This one does have a pretty dramatic like shift, from side to side. So it's nice when that happens, because you can be a lot more confident with your supplies to go in and make something, really dark or really light. Did want to define a little bit more this lower lash line, and see, that's what, doing it this way, you can just get such fine detail on there. So that is really fun. And like, if you were going out and about and doing some sketching, this is another great method that you can use without any other supplies to get a more watercolor effect. Like, you could obviously, you can always go in with your fine liners to get some more definition and details in some areas. But if you only have these two supplies with you and you're having a little trouble getting in there with it, it's a really good option. Just gonna finish up a little bit here, and then I'm gonna go back to my other one, put some finishing details on it. So here we have Padme in episode 2. I'm not going to finish the shirt right now, just for time's sake. Let me, where did I put that? For reference. And then I'm just going to make sure I have some details, and I'm going to actually use that technique and come in and use a couple, like in a couple areas, to add in some eyelashes, some areas that just need a little definition. Sometimes this is also nice because if you could clean your brush and then only just pick up exactly tiny amount, have a little more control over that too. It's like, I think just need to get in some areas here where it is just a little bit darker, like right here in front of the eyebrow. And then down the edge of this nose. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and put water here, and paint over it with my brush, and then come back in and kind of do a wet on wet technique there so that it easily spreads. So I didn't want this to be too much all at once. Whoop, maybe it was. Clean my brush here. And then this side of the nose can be a little bit darker too. And something I like to do when I'm drawing is to, like, you know, back away from it. But it's a little hard to do while on stream as well, but do your best to get some perspective on it. It's like you can be so in there. That looks a lot better. That nose has improved a bunch since I started putting some more definition on it. And I think I can see I just need to make this part a little bit darker here. It's like this shadow in my reference is almost just as dark as the eyebrow itself, but I was too hesitant to go in there and just go for it. So, but that's all right, because you can build, and it's harder to make it lighter. You can always go back and add more. And this area of the eye is also pretty dark as it goes this way. And even though I can't exactly see them, she probably has some eyelashes here. So I kind of go in and add a little bit of fullness to that lash line. Whoop. I just had the cap. I had the cap of my water brush on the other end and it just flew off. So I guess I'll just find that later. Had a question. I've been thinking about getting some water-soluble graphite. Is this on watercolor paper? This isn't actually. This is just this is like sketch paper. Let me show you the cover so you can easily find it on the ArtSnacks shop. This is the drawing and sketch paper by Van Gogh, and it's mostly recommended for dry media like graphite and like pastel, but it can also handle like a light wash. And so, like, even though I'm using a water brush on this, I'm not doing like full washes of color where I like totally soak the paper. Something a watercolor paper would be able to handle. This would definitely warp if you did that. If you watch James Burt Creative's video on the ArtSnacks channel, he does do some methods that really saturate the paper, and you can tell it warps a little bit, but it still handles the media pretty well. But if this example that I have was done on some, I would say it's mixed media paper, so it's not quite as thick as a water color paper, but it is a little bit thicker. I would say it's for the amount of water that I'm doing on it, it's done pretty well for both. Like, I wouldn't say you definitely don't have to get a watercolor paper. So, but if you're trying to maybe get the full range of its water soluble abilities, then I would definitely try out on a watercolor paper too. So if you're going for this look, I would say watercolor paper isn't necessary. Rodney said, this is so great. I'm learning more about transfer and everything else, and I have since I've been in ArtSnacks. This looks so easy. I'm not sure it's as easy as it looks, but it's an amazing process. Thank you so much, Rodney. Yeah, it definitely, the transfer method, I love it because it cuts down. It definitely, like, I can get straight to the creative process and not have to like worry about like proportion and all that so much, and get to the part that really motivates me and excites me about portraiture. So I think it definitely makes it easier, but you know, everything comes with its challenges. So something I wanted to show you real quick is a way I like to anchor like a portrait like this, and that is getting out a compass and drawing a circle around. I'm kind of practicing the radius or diameter here to make sure I have the right width. I don't want to go off my page. That looks pretty good. And so what I can do is take this and draw a circle. And then Something I like to do is then come in with my paint pen or similar product and then put a solid color in the background. So instead of going in and coloring this in like dark gray with my graphite crayon, I can then go in with a paint pen, and then it's a pop of color. It kind of like posterizes this look a little bit. It's certainly, to me, like when I think of like Star Wars fan art, it kind of gives it more of that fan art vibe. And I noticed that I didn't define this, like the edge of this hairline, because I was trying so hard to keep it really light. I'm just going in really light with my water brush, so I have something to go off of in the outline. And we do have just about 10 minutes left in the stream. So make sure you've gotten all of your questions in, or requests for my final live stream of the summer box. So there'll be a third live stream later this summer using the same supplies. This live stream was kind of all about the water soluble crayon, but I am happy to focus either like kind of generically on all of the art supplies, and kind of do another ArtSnacks challenge using a variety, or if you want me to deep dive into the paint pens or the brush pens or the fine liners, definitely let me know. I am a pretty experienced letterer. I like the faux calligraphy brush style lettering. I like doing word art that's more just like creative lettering. And the King art pens are a good one to kind of practice doing some brush style stuff. So if that is something that you are interested in, definitely let me know. And if you're watching the replay of this, or if you're watching live, but especially if you're watching the replay of this and you're not live in chat to give me suggestions, definitely go and join our online community at Mix. And you can see it's going across the bottom of the screen right now. The link is mix.artsnacks.co. And you can go join our community. You can see what people are making with their box. You can see all of my finished pieces on there. And you can also, on any of my posts on Mix, feel free to comment on them with questions or with suggestions for what you'd like to see in the next live stream. So definitely check it out. I always describe Mix as the nicest corner of the internet. It's just a really great place to see other artists work and feel really safe with whatever skill level you're at as well. So definitely check it out. I see. If I don't have the big graphite sticks, what else do you recommend to do the transfer so it's not too messy? So the big graphite crayons, something else that you could use would just be like just a simple pencil. I mean, as like if you're even just using like a school pencil, that will still, it'll take you a while to color in the back depending on how big your drawing is, but it will still get the job done to do a transfer. Or if you have any of the, like somewhere that's halfway in between something like this and a school pencil, is using one of those woodless graphite pencils. Those can kind of help you get a little bit more coverage. I certainly think that sticking with graphites, especially if you, like a school pencil is going to be very erasable, so it's going to be keep your area pretty clean. I wouldn't go towards anything like charcoal or pastel. Like that would help, like that would transfer easily, but it would transfer like a little bit too easily. So if you're trying to keep it not messy, I'd stick to that. And that's what I recommend for this type of transfer method. If you're looking for other types of transfer methods, like doing a grid method would definitely be not too messy because you don't have to draw anything on the back of the sheet. So I'm just going through and filling in this background, and you'll see I should be able to fill this in before our stream is up, and you'll see that it really helps to anchor the figure and really make your piece go from like finished to like polished. So if you haven't done something like this, and this, like, you could do any shape. You could fill in the whole thing red in the background. You could do a triangle, diamond, you know, you could mess around with exactly what shape you want. You don't have to do a circle, but the circle feels like, I don't know, it feels like very Star Wars, very regal kind of thing. So that's why I picked that one. I'll make sure my other hand's a little messy, so I want to make sure I'm not touching my painting too much. And you can see I mentioned that these markers are very opaque, and you can see that quality of them. Not having to go over this very many times. See a couple areas where I just missed the paper, but that's an execution error. So I can go back and pretty easily fill in any little light streaks. I do wish I would have transferred that very edge of the hairline, but I think this will do. These paint pens are super great. And yeah, I got the whole set one time in an ArtSnack or Art Journal Snacks box. I think from a while ago. I don't think it's available anymore, but that's how I was first introduced to like the full range of them, and they are pretty great. So I'm just going to finish this up, and then we can talk over on Mix. And I'll make sure to post this finished piece on there as well. I'll go in and finish the shirt, but wanted to be able to show you guys what this is going to look like with the background. And I'll probably be finishing that other one, you know, with the hood. That one will take a little longer because I think that technique takes more time to do, that more like painting on style. But I'm excited about that one. And you can never have enough Padme Amidala drawings. That's some good wisdom right there. All right, so perfect timing. Got 1 minute left. So we're just gonna look at it, admire your finished work. I can already see some little areas that I think need touch up on this hair area, but I think all in all, very successful capture of the value structure of the drawing. And we really used like every way you can use this graphite crayon. We drew, like we transferred with it. We did our initial shading with it. We went in with the water brush. We went back in. And then we also used it like a palette where we took it right from the crayon. So I think we explored all the different options to use this. And if you guys come up with any other ways to use the crayon that you've been exploring, definitely post it on Mix and definitely tag me so I can see it. But this was a lot of fun doing this stream with you guys, and I look forward to our next stream a little later in the summer and exploring some of the, like, doing some deeper dives on some of the other products as well. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I will see all of you over on Mix. See you guys.